So please welcome our next guest, Marian Salzman, who will be interviewed by our very own co-founder of OMR, Philipp Westermeyer. But before that, we're going to show you guys a little film. Film up.
Brands nowadays are more than providers of products or services. They have to serve society. Sometimes you have to invest more than just money, and you have to take the difficult path, even if that means disrupting your own business. But in the end, it is the only chance to transform yourself and serve a greater good. You have to walk the talk. You have to create better alternatives. You have to create a better future. Then you can create meaningfulness.
Okay, that's Unsmoke. That's a campaign from Marian Salzman. Were just quoted in the movie. Let's sit down.
Yeah.
The Senior Vice President for Global Communications at Philip Morris.
Yes.
You don't smoke.
I don't smoke. I've never smoked. I am encouraging everybody who smokes to quit. And if you don't smoke, don't start.
And to do what instead?
Quit. The best answer is quit. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you do smoke, quit. If you can't or won't quit, then we say change to better, but quit.
Okay.
Stop.
Okay. The topic of our conversation is marketing in the age of rage. I mean, you're trying something very unusual here. You're trying to change the model of a global corporation, basically. I mean, Philip Morris is completely changing what it does. Can you maybe explain a little bit what's going on there and why you made this decision?
Sure. So Philip Morris is trying to encourage people to get away from, give up on smoking combustible cigarettes, to put down their Marlboro and stop, quit, end of story. If they won't quit, then we're trying to encourage people to change to a better alternative, whether it's an IQOS product or a vaping product or a smokeless gum, whatever it is, give it up. Give up the smoking. And it's a huge transformation because the backbone of our company has been combustible tobacco for a long, long time.
I think what's interesting about it is there's many companies that try to transform their business. I mean, the digital transformation is a huge buzzword, and especially for large corporations, it's very hard to do that, to like let go of legacy business in favor of new business. How is that happening? How do you do that?
So we're not only trying to let go of legacy business, but we're also trying to let go of legacy hate. So in talking about things like rage, we have haters who hate us for things that happened well before you were ever born, in some cases even before I was ever born. But we have a legacy that we have to get rid of by doing the right thing, which we've been doing for a decade, and in terms of investing money to come up with alternatives. And we need to just move forward into the future. So transformation is rough, but the hardest part is the emotional transformation, the embracing constant change. Because transformation isn't a beginning and an end. It's a constant journey. It's every single day. And by the way, 365 days of the year, not just Monday to Friday, not just 8 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. It's 365, 24/7.
And is it fair to say that PR is a huge part of that? I mean, what you communicate to the outside. I mean, you are a very experienced PR leader in the end. How is PR affecting this, and how has maybe the new age of PR influenced this decision?
So right now we're living in a world of constant communications. So everything is communications. PR, whether it's earned media or owned media or paid media with our message. It's about getting people to have different kinds of conversations. I'd argue that for us, it's about re-entering civil and civilized society and having constant conversations to try to make things better. We're not aiming to make things great. We're aiming to make things better.
Okay, but maybe can you, like, as a PR expert, my observation is that companies all of a sudden do very absurd things. Elon Musk sends Teslas on a rocket ship to Mars. There's so many things happening that you never heard of. I mean, it used to be you send out a press mail and say what's new with the product. And all of a sudden now, like, PR is everywhere and companies are forced to do very weird things.
So there's stunts, and that's obviously part of PR. I'm not advocating or endorsing that we do anything stunt-like. Certainly people like Elon Musk, they live in the land of being totally disruptive by changing the game, by changing the conversation. I think other companies we've moved away from that press release thing, which used to be, oh, at 4 o'clock today we'll do a press release. Obviously in a regulatory environment, there's some things we have to do via press release in order to keep people informed. But it's really about constantly communicating, constant storytelling, constantly evolving narrative. Keep sharing information and insight with all of our stakeholders, whether they're external or internal.
And which platforms? I mean, is marketing? What's the leading marketing platforms for you?
No, the problem is you're the leading platform. Human billboarding, the fact that actually people are media is, I think, the most important thing. The most important source of information is P2P, person to person. But I might get it from your Facebook, I might get it from your Twitter, I might get it from your Snapchat, I might get it from what you posted on Vimeo or YouTube, but it's P2P, it's you to me.
And is it a special challenge for Philip Morris? I would assume so, because you have, I mean, there's legal legislation on what you can advertise. I mean, the classic advertising is difficult in your space, so PR is even more important. Is that correct?
Yeah, owned, earned communications, because obviously we live in a land where we have to follow the law, L-A-W, but we also need to disrupt the lore, L-O-R-E. The lore being things we thought you couldn't do, but maybe you can do. And we need to figure out what the law will allow us to do. And certainly in the digital space, obviously heavily regulated.
Okay, and maybe can you give me a couple examples of, like, PR, or like open your mind on, like, how you do PR for IQOS right now, or for
I'm not really equipped to talk about. I'm responsible for the corporate brand. I'm responsible for the brand called Philip Morris International. So I'll give you a great example. This year we wanted to have different kinds of conversations around the meetings that were taking place at the World Economic Forum Davos. So we could have issued a press release, but instead what we did was we bought 4 full pages in the Wall Street Journal to start and we called it Questions, and we had our own people answer questions to spark dialogues with heads of state, with NGO leaders, with journalists. We wanted it to be about questions and answers. So we took the bull by the horns, we acquired the space in the media, and then we retained journalists to actually write questions and answers with us.
Okay, but then you paid for then you put it as an advertising.
We paid for it as editorial.
In the New York Times?
In the Wall Street Journal. We paid for it. It was sponsored editorial, funded content, if you would.
Okay, that's the new word, funded content.
Funded content is part of the new world.
Okay. Maybe one thing about PR that I find interesting is, it seems to me like companies of the middle, like a Nike or maybe Philip Morris is also probably a company of the middle. You see that they, especially with the Nike example or with the Gillette example, they do very extreme things. Like the Gillette puts out a video about the modern man. Nike sponsors athletes that create rage, that kneel down during the national anthem and this kind of thing.
Or maybe, actually, let me come back at you. Maybe the athlete kneeled down and Nike decided to join him in his effort.
Exactly, but that's controversial. That's very, I mean, you know, when you do that as a Nike, or when you do something like a Gillette did, you know it's going to spark rage. I mean, why is it so attractive to brands to spark rage?
Well, I think we're living in an age of rage. I don't think we need brands to spark rage. I think what happens is a brand can figure out how to exploit the rage, how to turn the rage into energy that might help the brand.
So maybe you can explain that a little bit. What is that to you, age of rage? I mean, it doesn't sound like a good thing. It sounds like rage is, to me, has a negative connotation.
It depends. Is rage passion or is rage a declaration of war? If Colin Kaepernick gives it the knee because he feels passionately about the way the country's headed, is that a negative rage or is that a guy expressing himself under his First Amendment rights?
Okay, so you'd argue that rage is mostly in a positive context.
No, I'd argue that rage, when it's passion and can be harnessed for productive change. I hope that people feel terrible rage about what the UN announced yesterday in terms of what we're doing to our planet. I hope people feel passionately about making changes.
But it has become a new marketing strategy to enrage people. Is that fair to say?
Well, to exploit rage. I don't know if it's about enraging people. I don't know if it's about making people angry, or we know they're already angry and we need to harness their rage for some productive gains.
Okay. And is that something that I mean, you like play with as well? I mean, I see Philip Morris as a brand that polarizes anyways. Is that something that you like think about as well?
So unfortunately, I think we're a victim still of rage, meaning people are very angry about the company's history, and we take abuse for that. I don't see us jumping right headfirst into the rage situation, because what we're trying to do is offer simply better choices, not necessarily good for you choices. But every day we deal with rage. I have the haters writing to me every day. I mean, ironic, I'm not a smoker. I don't advocate for smoking. I know that smoking isn't good for you, but I still have the haters writing to me telling me how I'm killing people.
But I mean, maybe part of the reason is that you are very, like, how do you say that, you're visible. You are sort of like act as your own brand in the Philip Morris context. I mean, at least in the international context, people know you in the PR sphere. You appear in articles. There's articles about your personal story, like joining the company. Is that part of your job now, to become a brand yourself and sort of like act as a heat shield for the brand behind you?
No one's ever asked me that, and I would actually argue probably not. I think my job is to open up doors so we can have more civilized conversations. I think for me and for us as Philip Morris, the goal is to not have people love us, but engage in what we're doing right now, a civilized conversation. For all I know, you might hate Philip Morris, but you're being diplomatic and you're being polite, and that's all we ask of people, is to enter into meaningful conversations with us. If I can't change your mind, that's okay.
What other topics? I mean, I know that you're also like very involved in gender discussions, like the whole situation. They're changing these months and weeks, and almost daily there's new developments. I know that you're like really passionate about that yourself, correct?
I'm really passionate about female equality. I'm really passionate about diversity and inclusion. I really believe that we live in a world that's made better by a more diverse population. I'm super proud of the fact that Philip Morris is the first Fortune 500 company that's equal salaries certified in every country in which we do business. We pay men and women equally. So I think there's some very good things about our company that get lost in what I'm going to call the history of tobacco.
Okay. And do you think, I mean, how far has the company come in that transformation so far? I mean, can you like give us an update on the classic, the legacy business and the new business?
So I can tell you that in Japan, which is the first market where we launched IQOS, we have about 20% of the market share of tobacco is in IQOS, is in heat not burn product. So in Japan, we've begun to see a real cultural transformation towards a smoke-free lifestyle, a smoke-free future. I think each country is in a different place, in part because of the regulatory environment. How easy is it for us to get our message out there? When we can get our message out there easily, people will try our product and then potentially make a conversion to our product. But it's a marathon. This is not a sprint. And this is not a race that we're going to win today, tomorrow. I will be long retired before we're going to be able to be out of combustible cigarettes.
So you're thinking like until everybody's like IQOS or like doing?
No. Until we have enough of a percentage that we basically can make that conversion, both from the standpoint of our stakeholders, but as importantly, if we stop selling combustible tobacco today, other companies, including illicit trade, will step in and sell people cigarettes. We need to do behavior change. We need to get people to change their behaviors where they don't go to light up a cigarette, where that light is over.
How did your competitors react to that? I mean, you just mentioned that if you wouldn't do it, if you would stop selling cigarettes today, somebody else would. But did those other classic cigarette companies?
I think everybody is in the alternative space. I'm not expert to speak about the alternative products, but I think Japan Tobacco is there, Korean Tobacco is there, BAT is there. Everybody has products that replace combustible cigarettes.
But you're the front runner. You're like the one with the most like powerful transformation, at least.
Well, I think we've invested an awful lot of money. We've invested $6 billion in looking for better alternatives. And we are a little bit ahead in terms of time-wise. So last week, we got our nod to go ahead and come into the U.S. market with Heat Not Burn, which is a big step forward and something the company's been working on for years. In terms of about 2 years ago, they filed, beginning to ask the Food and Drug Administration for that right. So, yeah, we're ahead of others, but believe me, there's no complacency because part of transformation is constant reinvention. Just because we have an IQOS 3.0 or an IQOS 2.4 for the U.S. doesn't mean we're done. It's the beginning.
Can you maybe, like, as a company that has like restrictions on where to advertise, you get creative, you do PR. We talked about that. Also, I see that you're opening stores. There's IQOS stores in Hamburg all over the place now. You work with us. You're like present here in a different building with your IQOS like festival presence. You do that quite a bit, I think. You go to festivals, you go to events. What else is there? How else do you get the message out if the classic marketing channels are difficult?
So I think that as a digital marketer, you'll understand we recognize that we live in an age where everything communicates. And following the law of the land, meaning the regulatory law, we figure out every way we can to, but again, it's with what we call the triplet. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. If you can't quit, move to safer choices. Better choices. So we're asking people to first and foremost consider quitting, and certainly don't start.
But the distribution platform, I mean, is there anything else that I forget? I mean, I think stores are powerful. People still like go.
I mean, that's the whole IQOS experience, the idea of an IQOS coach. So if you're going to go give up smoking, we will find you a coach, whether it's a face-to-face coach or a virtual coach, to help you through, because it's not easy to quit smoking. It's not easy to give up your cigarette. And so we want people to have a guided tour through all of that.
But in the end, I mean, I like almost last question. It still is like, I mean, is it tough for your shareholders to see that, or for your CEO? Like, I mean, they see the revenue. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I see revenue, and then I always find it tough to like switch. Is that nothing that?
I think it's almost a religious zeal for us to get people to convert, to get people to go off of I mean, this is the biggest public health challenge in the world. If we can get people off combustible cigarettes, our lives have real meaning. I think it's way more, especially to the people at the top. Look, I'm new to this. I'm only 13 months in, but there are people who've put the last 5-10 years of their lives into developing the science to come up with better alternatives. So they're almost zealots. They want to share this knowledge with others. So it's in a funny way, our most important marketing technique might be, again, P2P, but sitting next to that smoker and getting that smoker just to think differently.
I mean, it almost sounds too good to be true that somebody's like so, like as a corporation is so motivated.
It took me 7 months to say yes to them because I didn't believe it either. The first time they phoned me, I was like, in your dreams, like really, I would go work for a tobacco company?
You were like an executive at a leading media company.
I was the CEO at Boss PR. I loved my boss. I loved working for the Polaroid family. I had no motivation to make a switch. I was happy. I was compensated. Life was fine. And they called me, and I was like, "What? Why in the world?" It was the first time I got the call. I called my husband that night, and I said, "I got the weirdest, stupidest phone call." And he, in fact, said to me, well, what are they talking about? And then I looked at the web. I never looked at the website. I didn't even know about smoke-free. And then I just started being a little more curious. And probably in the course of the recruiting process, 3 or 4 times, I was like, I don't want this job. I don't do tobacco. I used to say, I don't do tobacco. And I still wouldn't use tobacco. But I really understand the importance of changing people's behavior to something that's better for them or getting them to quit.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Marian, thanks for being here, for
Thank you.
being a partner to us, for doing this, and best of luck with the transformation.
Great conference. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take that.